This week, Gary B. Smith, John Layfield, Lisa Booth, and Chuck Rocha. Welcome, everybody. Gary B., this sell-off has you worried about the economy. What is it saying?
It does, Dagan, and you remember even a week ago you and I were sitting in New York talking about the economy, and I was worried. Look, there's a couple things going on. One, I think the market always tells a story, and it tells a story about what may happen in the future. We saw the worst weekly decline, Dagan, since October 2008. We all remember 2008. It was horrible. I think we have the underpinnings of something that could be worse. You know, we have seen wages stagnant for like 30 years now. We've seen housing still not back to its old level. Demand for oil has dried up because economies across the globe are not growing, and labor participation rate is at an all-time low. Add those things up, and I think you have some serious storm clouds ahead.
And, John, you have a government that does nothing but get in the way of people doing business.
Yeah, and the government has done absolutely nothing to help this economy. There's so much gridlock in Washington, D.C. on both sides that you don't have an immigration plan, you don't have a tax plan, you don't have any type of national energy plan. So there's nothing that opens up jobs in America. I disagree somewhat with my friend Gary. I think what's happening right now is the second largest economy in the world, China, is slowing down, and so you're seeing a repricing of stock markets around the world. And you look at China, it goes from 7% to 5%. You say, well, that's not much. It's still growing at 5%. That's incredible. But that is a 30% decline. And if you look at this in a historical context, you look at the S&P was 500 in the year 1995, just 20 years ago. That's a 4-time increase right now to 2000. And that increase includes two big dips of 1,500 to 1,000 twice during the housing crisis and also during the financial crisis. Ronald Reagan oversimplified it, said markets go up and markets go down. But that really is what's happening here. This is a correction that is long overdue.
But, Lisa, you had an economy in this country that actually contracted in the first quarter before bouncing back in the second. We are weak, regardless of how you want to look at it. We are, Gary's talking about wages have not been growing for years. You have a very low labor participation rate. You have one indication of unemployment that is in double digits, people who want to work more but can't. Is this a recession ahead?
Well, potentially. And look, we've also had incredibly uneven economic growth as well. And I think what's been happening here is the Federal Reserve has been propping up the stock market, and there's no historical evidence to support that we can perpetually do this. And I think if you couple that really with, these regulations that we've seen under President Obama in this regulatory state, I think that we could be potentially heading for a breakdown.
She's talking about regulations, Chuck, but you have the new overtime rules. You have a health care system that has been completely torn apart, that is and continues to be a burden on businesses. How can we not see economic weakness ahead?
You know, it's weeks like this that remind me that my papa was a pretty wise man by keeping his money in the closet in a cigar box. But as you think about us moving forward, we're creating about 200,000 jobs a month. Unemployment is down from 10% to 5%, and foreclosures are at a 10-year low. I tried to look back at this because obviously I'm a political consultant, and this is not my forte. But looking at where the 401 investment is for common everyday Americans, whether you're a small businessman like me, or mom and pop who have been in a 401k where you have most of all of your wealth outside of your home tied up in the stock market, it even brings real concern to me. I think that it is somewhat of a correction, but I think that there has to be a big change, or we're going to constantly see the ebb and flow the wrong way, in my opinion.
And, Gary, Lisa brought up the Federal Reserve. That literally is the only thing that has been propping up the market, right? The free and easy money that has been pumped into our system while you've got jack all coming from the federal government.
Yeah, exactly, Dagan. I guess there's two sides of that coin. One is if the Fed raises rates, what is it going to do to the stock market? And generally everyone agrees probably not good. On the other hand, when we see things like what happened today, or Friday rather, and what happened this past week, look, the Fed is supposed to just look at economic numbers and things like that. Let's be serious. They look at what's happening with the stock market. So when we see, a really bad, horrible week, that might give them pause to not raise in September. Overall, though, they're going to have to pull back the punch bowl at some point.
Yeah.
That's another thing, along with those other stats I mentioned that's going to hurt the market.
If we think, John, if we think this is a hangover, when they start really pulling away the juice, man, there is not a painkiller on planet Earth they can get rid of that kind of hangover.
Yeah, and how in the world, like Gary B says, how in the world can they possibly raise rates in September? Look, they missed the boat. They should have raised them 9 to 12 months ago. They absolutely missed their window. And now the reason you raise rates is because you're trying to stop an overheating economy. That is not what's going on right now. And you look at a disconnect between the stock market and the economy. The stock market is absolutely on fire right now. The S&P was 800 in January of 2009. It is now at 2,000, a 2.5-time increase. There's no way that you can say that the economy is on fire like that. What my friend Chuck Rocha says is right. You are seeing a lot of green shoots, but you're not seeing really great things going on with this economy because you're seeing the labor force participation rate still at a multi-decade high. And so you're seeing a disconnect in the stock market. I don't think the Fed raises rates in September. I'd be hard-pressed to say they might even not raise them in December.
Lisa, I'll offer some good news, though, because of the plunge you've seen in oil prices and gasoline prices. That will certainly put a lot more money in people's pockets. In addition, you've got the drop in longer-term interest rates. Mortgages are going to get a whole lot cheaper. So that hopefully will give our economy a little bit of up and go.
Well, absolutely. Look, I think this oil boom that we've seen, you know, it has nothing to do with President Obama in the sense that he's roped off more federal lands than a lot of previous presidents have. A lot of that's happening because of hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling that's happening on state and private lands. And so, look, I think we've talked about this economic uncertainty that Americans are feeling, and I really think this is going to be an influential factor heading into the 2016 election, because if you continue to look at the polls, the number one issue that Americans continue to express their concerns with is jobs and the economy. So I think this kind of volatility in the stock market is going to play into that and could potentially affect voters' decisions heading into 2016.
Chuck, usually when someone's running for re-election, a president, they will try and juice the economy, stimulus, make it look good before the election year. That's not the case this year. So is the president just going to sit back and just say, hey, Hillary, try and run on my record now?
I think you'll see him concentrate on the positive things that I started within the unemployment rate, how many jobs they've created. But this week I was down in the Keys. We were doing some fishing with a lieutenant colonel friend of mine, and he is doing a lot of trading of stocks. I'm never going to act like I'm the expert, but he came to me and said, Chuck, you've worked hard. You've got a little bit of liquid assets. Here's the time to invest, which was the first time I'd ever thought about why would I want to invest now. He's like, this is a time for you to get back in. The market will readjust, and working people like you should get in at this rate. And it made me step back and go, oh, my God, I can talk to Gary B. and John about reinvesting in the stock market and talk about when things are on the down low. And then he talked about a bull market, and I was like, oh, my God, I do my best financial planning on a fishing boat. That's the story.
I like the money in the cigar box in the closet, because that's basically the same thing as buying gold, because you're just putting money in a non-performing asset. Gary B., but what do you tell somebody who says, hey, I've already gotten the questions, you know, just in the last, I got it this morning, several hours. What do you do with new money? Should I go to all cash? Should I put money to work in the stock market? What do you say?
Well, two things. One, I say if you're fishing down in Key West, you don't even need to worry about the market. You're already doing great, okay? Keep doing what you're doing. B, I always advise most people to take a very passive approach. Balance it with something like the Dow Diamonds or the SPY, gold, and maybe TLT. Alt ETFs, the TLT follows the bond market. Every month, every 6 months, rebalance. Take some that's going great guns and put it in the stuff that's not. You'll have very average returns, but you'll have safe returns that can weather just about any economic environment.
Okay, that was boring. No, I'm just kidding.
I know. Look, I would rather be down fishing in Key West.
I know. We all need to we need to take a page out of Chuck's playbook there. He seems to be having a lot more fun than we are.
Yeah. Politics is a fun sport.
All right, guys.